Okay, man. Well, we're back here, and it's the Leftovers. 6 years later, a Leftovers chat. I'm Ethan. That's Benji. We're getting deep into season 3 now, so I mean, let's just get started. We're the Leftovers, season 3, episode 6, certified. Woo. And just to let everyone know, we're recording this about a week after the exact premiere date of this episode 3 years ago. It's always nice to point out. There's a lot of attention actually this week on social media and everything, and Amy Brennemen tweeted about it, so pretty good stuff. We open in a flashback with the lady from the first shot of the pilot telling her therapist, Laurie Garvey, her story of finally having a baby after many failed tries and the loss of the child at the time of the sudden departure. Laurie cannot summon the will to give any form of advice besides a resigned "I don't know." The woman leaves after expressing anger at the guilty remnant standing outside would at least write down an answer for her. Sorry about that. Laurie takes a massive amount of pills in order to commit suicide. She quickly regrets her decision and drinks ipecac syrup and throws up the pills. Silently, she changes from her work attire and puts on a white sweatsuit. She goes and joins the guilty remnant. And then we get the credits, which is the song 1-800-Suicide by Gravediggers. So, I mean, what do you think here? We had our first cold open, I think, of the season.
Yeah, you may be right. Well, apart from the French guy.
That wasn't really a cold open because we got the credits, right? And he was saying the prayer under the credits.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess it is then.
Yeah.
So, I was so I guess oblivious, because when I was watching this for the first time with you, and I saw her take that many pills, I remember thinking at the time, that can't be good for you. But it took me a solid 2 or 3 minutes to actually realize what she'd just done. So yeah, I totally missed the boat on that, which is I don't know how, but as soon as she started chugging down the stuff and throwing up, I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. So it was only really watching it the second time that I properly kind of understood the implications of some of the stuff she was doing, because I understood what she was trying to do, which I didn't really get the first time, for my fault for just not noticing that. But I guess the thing that stood out to me was that for Laurie, it's like GR or nothing, basically, because that seems to be the only other alternative option. So is that what it's meant to be? Is it she either joined the GR or she just she's gone?
I mean, it's kind of open interpretation. She really did, she lost her baby in the departure, and then she tried to go back to work just like everybody else, I guess, like nothing was different and nothing had changed. And obviously things were really different and things were really changed, and she had no answers. And I guess she gets this idea that, she's ready to go because so many people were after that happened. And, it's a hard thing to do. I don't know. I've never actually done it, commit suicide. I guess she figured that she at least give that a try first to find some kind of meaning. You know what I mean? And, it saved her life for a time. What did you think of seeing that actress again? Did you know who it was right away?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice to get a call back from her, wasn't it?
But,
huh?
Yeah, good. No, I was saying she looked different, but it was weird. She looked more kind of composed here than in the pilot. I guess that's the point.
Oh yeah, totally not. She's talked herself out of having to wait in the same parking lot every day. Who knows how long this was after the departure, right?
Mm-hmm.
6 months to a year, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what I was just thinking about before when you were saying she would at least give the GR a try before doing that. So if it's basically this is the GR, and then it's either this or she just dies, right? By the end of season 1, obviously she leaves the GR, but she doesn't die. So it's like between this moment that we see here and the end of season 1, something must have changed, because she's no longer in a place where it's only the GR or death, because she goes and does something else. But like, do you know what it might be that would have like changed her? Because
well, I think her children saved her. I think realizing that at this point, maybe losing Jill twice, once with her own suicide and once losing her in the house, might have done something to her. And also, it's very fated that she would meet Tommy there at the statue after the season. So I can only assume that there was some glimmer of hope, someone still there after she is rejected by Kevin and Jill, that Tommy is still there, still loves her, and is still willing to deal with her. So that's what I took from it. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Did you think anything of the opening song once it was playing?
I mean, there was one word that was repeated quite a lot, so
right.
That one stood out. Yeah.
Right. All right, so I'm going to go to after the credits. Mm-hmm. Back in the present, Laurie arrives at Grace's farm with a shiner and a stolen van. She sees Kevin Sr., and they have a tense but also tender reunion. We find out that Matt isn't coming, and she gives Sr. back the book of Kevin. She makes it clear she is there to be part of whatever is about to happen. We flash back a few days and see Laurie spying on the machine doctors with Nora. Laurie, Nora, and Matt are scoping out the doctors in the stolen van together to see where they are going. Back at the ranch, Kevin Sr. tells Laurie the whole story about how he came upon Grace and what the plan is for Kevin Jr. and the flood. Here's where I have my first audio clip. Ready?
I'm not sure she understands.
I understand. You want to drown Kevin so that he can go to this place where the dead people are, and while he's there, he's going to learn a song from one of the dead people, and he's going to bring that song back to you so you can sing it and stop the biblical flood that's going to happen tomorrow.
That about covers it.
And you've told all this to Kevin, and he's actually considering it.
Yeah. He got one of Grace's horses headed out, said he'd be back by sundown.
And you think that Evie, that she's in this place too?
Why wouldn't she be?
Well, so everybody wants something. A brain, a heart, courage. Kevin's in the Emerald City. He's the one that's going to give it to you.
All right, Dorothy, let's have it. Tell us we're lunatics.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but these are crazy times, huh?
So when Kevin comes back, you're not going to jam us up.
No. I'm not going to jam you up.
And then she says it's a lot to put on someone, but Kevin will come back because he always does. And just at that moment, a policeman knocks on the door. Mm-hmm. I put that in there because I wanted you to know, and anyone that's watching, to know exactly. They tell you, they lay it out exactly what these people want from Kevin. Anything? What do you think of that plan?
Well, I do have a couple of stuff about the plan. I mean, namely, it's interesting that even after the Kevin Senior episode, he still thinks he needs to sing, and like Kevin needs to go find this guy, and he's got to stop the flood, which is interesting because I was up in the air, right? And I was like, I don't know if he's abandoned that by the end of what is it, episode 3, the one he's in. and it's kind of open ended. Like, has he realized it's not really, it's it's not a thing,
right?
But it seems like it's still going. He's just managed to work all the other elements in,
You're talking specifically about Christopher Sunday in the song, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about the fact that. So the question was at the end of the Kevin Senior episode, like, has he realized that this isn't about him? It's about Kevin Junior. Has he sort of put his ideas to bed and like he's not pursuing that anymore? And I guess this answers the question. He hasn't stopped with his ideas. He's just sort of worked all the other ones in with his.
Yeah, and I think a theme that we're going to get in this episode is everybody's being extremely selfish. In fact, one person that was being not extremely selfish, or was extremely selfish in a previous episode, but now is not, is Matt, basically, right? Matt and Laurie. Yeah, so Kevin Senior, I don't know why he still thinks that's the way to go. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's just using Kevin Jr. as a workaround for his original plan.
Right.
You're right. Yeah. It totally makes sense. I don't know if I have an answer for you, but it's totally true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the thing that I wanted to backtrack to, sorry, did you have something? Is when Laurie first sees Kevin Senior, and he's got like a bag of shoes, right?
Yeah.
Or he says he's got a bag of shoes. Obviously at the time that's like just kind of goes over you, but then later in the episode there's that bit of Grace, right, where she's talking about her children's shoes and she doesn't know where they are. And obviously it's just kind of weird, right, that you see Kevin Senior's got a bag full of shoes and then we have this conversation about shoes. I'm assuming they're linked, but I'm not sure how.
And you also see her in previous episodes looking through bags of shoes. Grace.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And then we'll get to it. I mean, we'll get to it. We'll get to it, but she's still searching for their shoes. Mm-hmm. Is what's going on. And we didn't know that before, right? Like, no. We'd seen shoes, we know what happened. But we'll get to that later because we'll talk about her kids are missing the shoes. Mm-hmm. I like the fact he calls her Lorelei. It shows a real history there, which we get more of later. A lot of Wizard of Oz comparisons right here, and even
even some what, sorry?
I would say dreamy music and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, no, because obviously you've got. What's interesting is if she's calling Kevin the man in the Emerald City, who's the man, behind the curtain, so to speak. I guess that's the question. It's like, because you get where Laurie's coming from, and it makes sense to go down that angle, but like, there's no sort of conspiracy here. It's not like there's somebody pulling Kevin's strings, and it's not like Kevin himself is even like trying to scam people or trick them. It's almost like it's like the Wizard of Oz, except from there isn't a man behind the curtain because he really is doing what he says he's doing, or at least he believes he's doing what he says he's doing.
Yeah, but I think there is some string pulling going by all these people that need something. These people that are being selfish and need something so much that they're trying to drown a man.
Yeah, but I guess no, that makes sense. But in the way Laurie's drawing the analogy,
yeah,
like in the Wizard of Oz, I don't think it's Dorothy that's pulling the strings. So I mean, either way, her analogy isn't right because either they're not Dorothy and they are the guy pulling Kevin's strings, or they are Dorothy and who's the guy pulling Kevin's strings.
Well, I do think Senior's pulling Junior's strings a little bit. But I do think you're right. It gets flimsy after everybody needs something different, right? A heart, a home, the nerve. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's a half-baked analogy, and it's analogy maybe for Laurie right now feeling like she's gone to the other side because, we're going to have to go deep on Laurie at some point. I mean, like, where do you think her mind is at this moment when she's hearing all this stuff? Seeing the episode and knowing that what she's been through before it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Laurie's the psychologist, not me, so I'm hesitant to try and make any judgment. I mean, she's obviously not, like, I think it's obvious that whatever she is thinking, it's not what she says she's thinking most of the time. And so, when she kind of brushes it off, like, oh, crazy times, there's no way that's what she's thinking. All I know for sure is that she doesn't really tell us what she is thinking, so we can only really guess. But on one hand, you might think, okay, she's here and she's thinking, okay, this is crazy. They're going to put this man's life in danger. I got to stop them. And that would sort of make sense to think that. But as we'll come to see, it doesn't seem to be what she's thinking. She seems kind of resigned to it. Which is weird, because you have that, like... So either she's for them killing Kevin, because she doesn't do anything, or she's against them killing Kevin, but she still doesn't do anything, which is almost worse, right?
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't do what they all expect her to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, she does, but not in the way they expect her to do it, and not with the outcome, right? Mm-hmm. Not with the outcome that she expected, because I think by this point she's resigned herself. I think so much of it comes down to this conversation she has with Nora, right, on the cliff, okay? Because they're both, in ways, chosen to be an usher that puts the air out of the balloon with their life, right? She's a psychiatrist. People are feeling great and fancy and seeing extra people, but she gives them medication and puts them in asylums, while Nora is a fraud investigator, right? So, and this takes place after her last talk with Nora. Mm-hmm. Who knows if she already has in her mind to go scuba diving or not yet, right? But there's a big resignation for her. You know what I mean? Like, and coming at it from purely psychiatrist point of view, I'm sure she sees people in the midst of all these breaks all around her, and she's stopped trying to put the air out of the ball. That's what I think it means.
Mm-hmm. But I think, and this is where we get into some of the problems with Laurie's, that sometimes she thinks, like, okay, the fact that she's even assuming there's a bubble to be burst is kind of her arrogance. You know what I mean? She has it like this duty on her and this resignation, like, oh, I got to be the one to pop this bubble. I got to be the one to burst this balloon. But she never actually thinks, what if there is a balloon? Like, what if there's more to this bubble than just needing to be popped, And that's why she just misses this stuff, She's not part of it like these other guys are, because she doesn't have that room for trying to see. Maybe there is something more than what she's seeing.
I think that's true too. She doesn't have the capacity to believe those things. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a thin line to be drawn there between, being able to comprehend those things or just being crazy. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, but I don't think she's putting herself in that role anymore. I think she's sick of being in that role. And maybe there should be chaos because it can't be controlled by one woman or one man. Mm-hmm. But I see your point for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like, yeah, she's sick of putting herself in that role, but has she stopped to think maybe that role isn't actually needed and it's just some self-imposed thing that she could just walk away from?
I think that's partly what she's getting to here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. It's funny you said before about her analogy being kind of half-baked, because it's not the first time that she draws a pretty half-baked analogy this episode. So it's, I don't know if it's like meant to be some kind of character flaw, is that she doesn't really think her analogies through, or
what's
this kind of... Mm-hmm.
What's the other one?
Oh, where she's just totally off the mark about Judas, and she hasn't even like read the account. She doesn't even know what happens. You know?
Right. So, that's a whole other. Yeah, we'll get to dinner. Trust me.
Yeah, but I mean, it's this kind of thing of Laurie's got this slight like, it's not pretentious, but it's like when you speak in analogies, and like, obviously I'm pretty sure I've tried doing that a couple of times on this podcast, but you do run the risk of seeming like you think you're so much smarter than everyone else, because you're like dancing around up here while they're just down here, and you're like weaving these analogies, and they're just like can't even keep up with you. But then when you start like just getting them plain wrong, and like they're not even an accurate representation of the situation, that just like, now you're down here and these guys are up here, and it's like you got to be careful with that. And it happens a couple of times this episode.
Sure. Self-awareness is key.
Mm-hmm. Did you notice as well the because I guess we talked about Laurie in with Kevin Sr. and the gang, but with Nora and that, I thought it was interesting. We had the dog attacking Laurie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. It's, that's one of those things. It was a cut into the next on the leftovers, and they showed a dog biting, and it was just at the beginning. Yeah. I guess I didn't put it in the context of the leftovers. Yeah, there's definitely a dog there.
Mm-hmm. And it was not their dog, so.
Yeah. Well, they're not our dogs anymore. Yeah. Laurie reviews Nora's thumb drive of people going into the machine. She insists on seeing the suicide machine, and Nora lays out the easiest way to commit suicide is to fake an accident during scuba diving. With Matt back, Nora takes Laurie to task for her schemes, and she pulls with John. She insists on a reading, even though Laurie has made it clear they don't read people looking for departure answers. Nora quickly pivots to confronting Laurie about her acts with the loved ones dolls when she was in the Guilty Remnant. Laurie explains that with death, it's easy to bring closure, but it's not possible with departures. There's a lot right here, given the ending of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And three things struck out to me here. One, suicide machine is a term that I've first heard on Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run, and I don't know why that popped out this time. He was talking about motorcycles, how they're suicide machines. So that was interesting. The scuba diving stuff. But over the last episode and this episode, people have really, really taken Laurie to task about her worst acts on this show.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the thing that happened in season 2. But, all the things that happened in Mapleton. The GR, the whistling at someone's house, the loved ones dolls, and even the scam she's running with John.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a review of, Laurie's greatest hits, if you will. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Nora's like... I just found it interesting when you compare Nora in this scene, so like how Nora is now, obviously the last time. So going from Good Day Melbourne to now, looking at how Nora is versus how Kevin is when we see him later. And they both seem to be like right at the opposite ends. Kevin's he's pretty calm, a lot calmer than you might expect, and he just seems kind of okay, weirdly. Whereas Nora is this like pent up ball of like energy and frustration, just like lashing out. And I just thought it's interesting how they separated, and then they've just gone to the total different extremes in terms of where they are as a character right now.
Yeah, like there is some mania that has clutched Nora and will not let go. She's almost like a junkie on a meth bench.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? With the constantly flicking, and everything has a double meaning, and the next scene is her like hey, can you give me back my lighter? Like I gave away to Lily, you know, like shaking all the time and everything. It's gotten deeper for her, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, we'll get to Kevin when we get to Kevin. So
Mm-hmm. The it's kind of it's just like one of those things that's you love watching it, but it's also like horrific. You know, it's like, oh dear, but you have to watch it because it's so good, and she's just this self-destructive ball of energy that's marvelous to see.
and in the end, it turns into something else. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That is heartbreaking again and beautiful. And we'll get there. Anything else going on in this part of the van?
I mean, we should mention Matt. He seems pretty chilled out for a guy who's dying.
Well, yeah, let me read this next section. We'll talk about Matt, okay? At the farm, Laurie won't disclose where Matt and Nora are, while John tells Laurie that her skepticism is keeping him at arm's length. Just as they get to the part about Nora giving Laurie the shiner, Kevin Sr. knocks out the police officer with a shovel. Back in the van, Nora admits her IUD is removed. We see the physical altercation between Laurie and Nora over the lighter. That was a gift from Jill in season 1. They get it together just in time to start following the doctors as they are leaving. So yeah, the gang in the van, you know, we got some of the gang back together. They're off with Scooby-Doo to, you know, get into some adventures. You're surprised that Matt's with them?
No, I'm not surprised. I'm just, I'm not surprised he's with them, and I guess I'm not. Maybe I said it wrong. I don't think it's personally like surprising when you see him and he seems okay, because obviously we've had a whole Matt episode where he's had this conflict and he seems to kind of come out a bit okay-ish. I'm just saying, in terms of like what you'd expect from a guy dying of cancer, one would be surprised at Matt's demeanor right now.
There is a great wave of reservation of some people after they go through whatever they've been through this season. So I think Kevin Sr. has it. He's resigned himself in a different way to thinking differently, even though we agree it's not the same. And Matt has also, you know, last week was the huge big catharsis for Matt, right? I think he is completely changed, and I think it's my personal opinion that everybody is going along. People that can be along for this ride right now are along for this ride right now with the people that their ride or dies, and his new ride or die is Nora. And I think everybody needs to get through the next day or two, and then they'll go on with whatever happens, either with a new life or not. So, I mean, what can he do right now? It's the day before all the flights are grounded. Mm-hmm. What can he do except go take his medicine and deal with his nosebleeds? Mm-hmm. But I think he's sick of freaking out. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So at some point you just roll with the punches is what I think.
Mm-hmm. I see
that. We see Laurie and Nora get into a fight over the lighter, which is small but fun, but it shows that each of them is in a separate kind of distressed state. And starting to get to the middle of this John and Laurie stuff, which is some of the best stuff in the episode. And watching you watch that shovel hit over the head was very funny. And she has her IUD removed, which means she still has a pretense to Laurie, but she's given up all pretense in her mind as to why she's going there. That's over, right? Mm-hmm. She's not busting anybody.
I was going to point out, did you see the another graphic match? I like pointing them out. It was the one between, I think it was between So there's the two cars, and like one of them goes to turn on the engine, and then we zoom out, and it's Kevin Sr.
Oh no, I didn't see that. And then he's in the van.
I think so, because like as far as I remember it, one of them in the van with Nora, it goes to, I don't know, it just looks, it kind of moves into that portion of the car, and then there's this screwdriver turning it on, and then we zoom out and it's Kevin Sr. I'd have to check, but it was a cool visual. Like, and talking of cool visuals, like you say, with the shovel bit, I really like the way they framed that. So it's just really nice the way it's like, it's really far out, but it's close enough that you can just see it happen, sort of like delayed, you're not watching it, you're watching what's going on here, but you see enough of that, but when it happens, you suddenly like twitch and you go, hang on. It's really well.
I think they can do a lot of that this week with the van and stuff, because so much of it, the action happens around the van. You know what I mean? I guess they're just trying to drive the point home that I think they're really trying to drive the point home that this is the same van. We're watching kind of one timeline out of order. We're watching a whole story in two timelines.
Yeah, I mean, so you were asking about John and Laurie, though, right?
Yeah, it's just the beginning of their talk, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, if you want, we can just wait until they have the real meat of the discussion.
Okay.
In a minute, I think.
Okay, so Kevin Sr. goes to hide the officer who has been knocked out. Laurie and John have a heart-to-heart about how she helped him and how he didn't want to admit that he thought Evie was still alive. He tells her he just wants Kevin to tell Evie she was loved. John admits that Kevin's story sounds crazy, but he can't throw it away because he would have to admit his story was the same. Laurie says she will stay and support him until the end. Not true. In the van, while Nora, Matt, and Laurie discuss how the Book of Revelations is supposed to be interpreted, Laurie gets a call from Michael asking her to come and help as quickly as she can. When Nora hears that Junior is with Senior, she says, tomorrow's a big day. We should all be with family. And then back at the ranch, Grace and Laurie make dinner and talk about Kevin and what kind of husband he was. Grace explains that when her children were found, that they didn't have any shoes. She wants Kevin to ask them why, and it's at this moment Laurie eyes up the dog's medication. Yeah, I just wanted to get those three little sections there.
I find it interesting that you said earlier about how everyone in this episode sort of gravitates toward their like ride or die. So you got Matt and Nora, you got like the Garvey boys, Michael and John, so on. And Laurie, one might be forgiven for guessing her and John would be that kind of dynamic. Given what we've seen earlier this season, they seem to be pretty happy together. But in the end, it's not, and it's like she just kind of abandons John. So what's that about?
Well, I mean, we'll take this conversation, right? You know, he didn't call her. You know, there's obviously love there. He wants to know how she got the black eye. She wants to know how he got there and why he didn't call her. And there's this big divide between them about what's going on with Kevin Jr. and what's not. And he's not like a full believer, but he's a believer in enough that he can't set aside other people's things because of what he's believing. And she doesn't, he's right, she doesn't believe in any of this. You know, and we have this theme going around where I think Laurie sees everyone as completely nuts, and at some point she's given up, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, if everybody makes it through the next two episodes, well, I guess not. Yeah, in the end, she abandoned John, right? I mean, maybe not to the point where, like, alone. Maybe he knows that Michael is there, and he'll be all right as long as Michael is there. And she makes it very clear that, because he said, "I'll leave with you," and she says, "You know, you should see this through. This thing." Mm-hmm. It all depends on if you feel like she was deciding to do what she did when she went scuba diving now or not. You know what I mean? And maybe this conversation with Kevin pushed her in that direction even more, because she realized that they're not going to be able to make it work with this fundamental, this care and loving that's there, but there's this fundamental, huge fundamental break in their thinking together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think about it.
Yeah. It's kind of frustrating because all of this, as somebody that you're watching and you care about Laurie, I mean, she annoys you occasionally, but you still care about her a lot because, like, of course you do. And it's like, all she had to do was, like, stick around a couple of days. And if it is really what they say it is, she would have found out. Like, or at least it would have been very hard for her to deny, because she would have been there, she would have seen what happened, and it's like, at this point, it still could be a really great ending to this story for all of them if they stick around and Kevin does what they say he's going to do. And all she has to do is, like, watch, all she has to do is look and, like, be there. But she doesn't even give herself the option to do that, which is what's frustrating. It's like,
well, this is more of a conversation for that bit about her and Kevin, which we'll probably spend most of our time on, right? But I think, and we'll get into it more, I think, she's signing him up for suicide, and she would have to stay there and watch that happen, and she can't do that. And that's what I think her not being able to stick around comes from. Everybody's kind of on their own path right now. And, if Kevin didn't stick around, if Matt didn't stick around with Nora, she would be doing what she was doing anyway. I think one of his arcs was to realize that he could help other people there more than Kevin. And his sister was there. But John's basically begging her, like, we can go. Let's go. But she's saying this is going to be here, so we need to take care of it now. And that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. It's interesting their different attitudes toward the whole scam they were running, and they seem to have different reasons for shredding the money. And John said he was shredding it because it wasn't real. So, what was Laurie's reason?
Making him happy, I assume.
So she would have kept the money?
Probably. But very quickly it became apparent that they wouldn't keep the money, so she didn't deal with it. You know?
That's interesting, because that's like when we talked about the whole scam they were running, and I was a little bit annoyed. And then one of the main arguments was, hey, they're shredding the money, so you can't get annoyed at Laurie for this. But then at this point, you realize that's not even, like, if it was her, maybe she would be keeping it. This is John that's shredding it, not her.
But I think it shows more. I think it shows more her good character in the fact that she's basically doing it to give him something to do to feel better about, calming his wrath and his anger and his rage at what has happened to him and changing him as a person. She cares more about him than she does money at that point. She's not like fighting for it or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I like about the van really is, Nora saying, tomorrow's a big day. We should all be with family. How do you feel about the Book of Revelations being interpreted so literally?
This is when they're talking about the French guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it was a... Are you talking about in the context of the show or just in general?
Either or. I mean, do you have any thoughts on it? I mean, is Matt right? It's not supposed to be interpreted like that? I mean, do you know?
I don't know. Like, I'm not the authority.
Okay.
I guess nobody's the authority on that. So, But yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff in there is like, it would make sense to think that's not literal. And I do find it funny the way it plays out in this. And Matt, even though he's so resigned, he just can't help but like bring it up and say, no, that's not what it's about. So, old habits.
Yeah, but it's only about the stuff you think it's about, but it can't be taken literally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There was I didn't notice one other thing connected to the van, which is like earlier we had the like the visual match between the van and the stuff going on with Kevin Senior and the gang.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm pretty sure there was like some kind of audio one here because, when Laurie and John are talking, like right at the end, she tells him, "You might as well stick this through." I think one of the last lines she says before the scene switches is, "You're so close." And then immediately we switch to Matt, Nora, and Laurie in the van, and Matt says to Nora, "You're getting close," because they're next to the car that they're tracking. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember, it's like back to back, and it's a cool little, just another cool crossover between the two.
And she says, "Shut up! I know what I'm doing." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like I had more on this John Laurie. I was really I'm going to do my Amy Brennemen speech at the end, but this conversation she has with John, I don't doubt for a second her love for him. I'll talk more about what's behind that love going on with her when we talk about the Kevin portion. But I mean, he's amazing. Kevin Carroll's amazing in the scene. Amy Brenneman's amazing in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes off to Kevin Senior goes off, and then she starts to make dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. No, sorry, you're covering it now. I didn't know if we'd missed that bit. No,
she's making dinner with Grace.
Mm-hmm.
It has one of my funniest lines in the entire series, which is you divorced him? I was in a cult. It's one of those things they make you do.
Yeah. Which is not really, I don't know if that's accurate, because she divorced him like quite a while after joining the cult. It's not like it was a prerequisite to getting in. It was, she sort of took that upon herself like halfway through.
No, but it was one of the things they made her do. Like she definitely had to do it to stay in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But it's not like I feel like she brushes it off a little bit too much, like kind of gives away that responsibility, and it's like, oh no, yeah, it wasn't me. It was the cult. The cult.
No, I think she takes the blame for everything that happened when she was doing that. But I think and we've talked about this before. We might just have a difference of opinion on it. It's a period in her life, and people have moved on for the most part. They forgive, but they don't forget. And, are you going to get bogged down deep into it? Or are you just going to say, yeah, I was in a cult. It's a thing I had to do for the cult. You know what I mean? Like, you can either choose to keep diving back into these painful parts of your life, or you can move on or tell little lies to yourself to get on with your life.
Yeah, but okay. No, I get that, but also it's not just, I still feel like she doesn't give it enough weight, because it's not just about the cult, because we saw in the episode, I think it was like the Garveys at the best, like they weren't doing so great before she joined the cult,
Right.
So, because the narrative here that she's telling Grace is, oh, Kevin was like an amazing husband, we were totally good together, then I joined the cult, then I had to divorce him. And she kind of misses out the whole part about, well, actually, the marriage was kind of breaking down, and then I joined a cult, and then halfway through that, I divorced him.
Yeah, I think she's just omitting a bunch of stuff to move on. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Can't argue with that.
But it did give Grace is looking for confirmation that Kevin's a good man, basically. And this is where she talks about the shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any shoes. She just wants Kevin to ask him why. I think this is where we had some great shots of the Ark, like the one behind me. It's a beautiful episode. Before dinner, Do you think her mind is on her scuba diving trip here?
Well, I mean, before dinner, is that the part with Grace? Is there another
Yeah.
part between that and dinner?
Mm-hmm.
So, at this point?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if she's already made up her mind, it's hard to see why it wouldn't be on her mind throughout all of this. Like,
Right.
if that's already the decision she made before she got there, then yeah, it's probably going to be on her mind the whole time. I don't think she'd just forget about it.
Yeah, but do you think she's made up her mind by now? Or is she waiting to talk to Kevin and see what's what first?
I don't know. I guess that comes down to the content of the conversation she has with Kevin.
Okay.
And I mean, we'll get into that, but like, one of the first things she says before they even have a proper conversation is like, "Are you here to stop me?" And she says no. And that's before they have the big discussion. So she still seems kind of resigned, even going into that conversation, which makes me think, yeah, she already has. But I don't know. Maybe something will come up when we talk about the conversation that I'm not remembering.
Are we ready for dinner?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm starving.
Okay. You're starving. As Grace excuses herself from the table, Kevin Sr. starts comparing everyone at the table to different apostles, with Junior in the role of Jesus. Everyone seems sleepy as they get around to Laurie, who is compared to Doubting Thomas. This is where it comes out that Laurie was responsible for his first incarceration after he started hearing voices. Laurie says she is Judas. Michael reminds her that Judas killed himself. She asks if Judas left a note. John says it's true. As Michael, John, and Senior pass out, Laurie looks at the dog and says, "I borrowed some of your pills." What I found most striking watching this one was the "it's true" that Michael says to her.
What does he say that afterwards? I mean, what precedes that?
Basically her admitting that she drugged everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to nothing specific, but I think it's to like, it's true you drugged everybody. It's true you don't believe in anything we're doing here. You know what I mean? It's you were hopping mad watching this. You were, I don't know if you were mad, but you were like, this is it. She's a horrible person. This proves it.
No, I wasn't thinking that. I was just it's not so much about Laurie, it's more about, if anything, it's about watching it as a viewer of a TV show, knowing that we're about to have what could be an amazing episode as long as Laurie doesn't stop it happening. You know, like, I'm ready for International Assassin Part 2. I don't want Laurie stopping that, you know.
Right.
But not, I mean, that sounds kind of callous. Like, I'm not. Obviously, Kevin's gonna have to die for that to happen. But at this point, you know, like, it's kind of got to happen. But then when you have people like Laurie coming in and it's like throwing a wrench in the works, you're like, no, we had this really cool episode coming up. Like, this narrative's really good, and please don't ruin it. Less so like, you're evil, you know.
She did look pretty sinister at some point, though.
She did, yeah.
Yeah, like when she's rubbing her.
It does feel like she maybe she enjoyed it a little bit too much.
You know, and in the terms of forgiving and not forgetting, you know, Kevin Sr. really kind of sticks it to her about the first incarceration. You know what I mean? You're the only one that believed me, that said I wasn't crazy, and then I woke up in a hospital. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. She's
following that. Don't tell someone they're in the middle of a psychotic break if they're in the middle of a psychotic break stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's so worried about, you know, jamming her up, getting jammed up by her, right?
Mm-hmm. And apparently, rightly so.
Yeah. But I think
I was gonna ask, yeah, sorry.
no, you go.
So you talked about Michael a second before, but Michael kind of confused me the whole episode because he's in with it, but he's also like, there's just a weird vibe, right? And he's the one who calls Laurie. Like, why does he even call her? You know, why is he even inviting? He knows she doesn't like believe in that stuff, so she's not going to be like an asset. The only thing she could be is like a liability. So what's the point in him calling her? Like, what is he trying to do? Is it for his dad? Or?
Yes, I think it's for his dad. I think Michael is along for the ride. I think he wants everyone to be okay. He loves everyone there. And he'll step in when he feels he absolutely has to. You know what I mean? He absolutely felt like he needed to call Laurie to come help either stop all of this nonsense, quote unquote, stop all of this nonsense, or get, or at least get him and his dad, you know what I mean, to stop all of this nonsense. I think Michael's doing, and the actor who's playing him is doing a superb job. But I forgot the question. I mean, you know, I think he's the guy that's along.
Is he like, yeah, I guess it's like, what is he trying to do? Like, what is his end game here?
His end game, I think, is to get everyone he loves back to a normal spot so they can be together. You know what I mean? And if there's something miraculous, let it come. But at some point, he's just there to see what happens and intervene if necessary. But he's kind of an observer, an outside observer who can change the pieces as he sees fit by having certain moves. He had a certain move to call Laurie. He called Laurie. You know what I mean? That's what I think. But Judas left a suicide note. I didn't see her writing any notes on the boat. We'll get to that, I guess.
No.
I'm gonna move on.
Yeah. I mean, we already spoke about like how this analogy is just like she misses the mark on this, and it's kind of like.
Well, yeah, the analogy, like she doesn't really know. She's not well versed in the Torah. You know what I mean? In the Bible, even though it's not the Torah, but she knows basic Andrew Lloyd Webber Jesus myth, right? Judas and 30 pounds of silver, but she wanted to be evil at that time and say she was Judas and look sinister and say you're all falling asleep because of me, ha ha ha. I thought there was a little bit in there, but I don't think she's trying
to. All the many characters in the Bible, I feel like that's the last one anyone would ever want to be, and so I feel like she's just saying it like, obviously she's just saying it for effect, but the fact that she doesn't even really understand what she's talking about is like, I don't know.
Maybe she's trying
too hard, I think.
Yeah, and she's trying to talk to Kevin Sr. in language he'll understand at this point because it's all he's talking about. Right? I'm going to go on cool. All right, so my big note over here is now we come to maybe the two best back-to-back scenes in the entire series. And I believe that. And maybe it's recency biased. I've watched this episode like 3 times this week. I watched it once more this morning. And I got just as choked up. Almost every time. So we got 2 sections here. Nora, Matt, and Laurie find the doctors and the machine. Nora tells a story about an usher squeezed the air out of a beach ball at a baseball game when they were kids and ruined the fun for the whole stadium. She wonders why someone would want that job. Laurie says without him there would be chaos. Matt lets Laurie know that he is staying with Nora. After Nora gives Laurie some cigarettes as a retainer to be her psychiatrist, and Laurie promises not to tell anyone where she left her or what she was going to do. Laurie leaves Nora and Matt on the cliff looking over the machine. That's one of those paragraphs I read, and I can't do it justice. It's one of the most powerful scenes in the show. The acting, the music, the story merge. The emotion is unstoppable. It's full leftovers on 11, and there's not much to say. It's just gorgeous. Nora's completely given into her fate, whatever that may be. Matt has given into his fate of being with his sister until she's not there, or going with her, or whatever it is. I want to say I feel like there's some relief, but the music and the tension building up to this Laurie Kevin talk doesn't give you relief. It just gets you really emotional and stretches the already amazing actors out even more.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with all that. There was one thing about it that slightly confused me though, about like the whole analogy itself is, so Nora obviously, like, she's tired of being this person that's popping the bubble, right? And she's not doing that anymore. Like she's not. That's not why she's there. So why is it that it feels like Laurie, when she tells her somebody has to do it, otherwise it's going to be chaos? That feels like at the time it felt like some kind of pep talk that she was like directing that at Nora. Like, this is why you have to go expose this fraud, Nora. It's because somebody has to, otherwise it's going to be chaos. And I know the chances are it was more like reflective on her, and she was just talking about herself. But the way it's done, when I was watching it, it did look like it was directed at Nora, when obviously we know it's not really applicable, right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where people are saying things to each other, but they're using words, and the words are not. The answer to the question is because there'll be fucking chaos. But her eyes and her emotion and her body are all just, to me, saying, I understand. Goodbye. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, I see that. It felt like it could have been up to this, almost like a commanding officer given these orders, like, I know you don't want to do this, but this is why you have to do this. Like, I know you don't want to go out there and do this because it's against what you want to do, and it's bad, and nobody wants to do it, but it's a job that needs to be done, and I trust you to do it, and like, go do it. It almost had that kind of vibe to it if you read it that way.
I think you could read it that way, but I kind of read it in the first. For Laurie, this is we're seeing the first realization that she's not maybe there to talk people out of things. And I'm just getting that now. She's there to support in what way she can, and then go let them be on their own. And this is the first time. And I think she figures out that Nora's not there to bust them. And at that point, she's like, I'm not going to try. Yeah. But, in a different line reading, I could see that way. But, I don't know.
Because no, I get what you're saying. I obviously I agree with that. Like, that's the way I would read it. But it does feel like Nora gets there. And it's like the kind of, the talk Nora gives is like the talk of somebody who's about to do something they don't want to have to do. And the way she says it is like, it almost feels like the whole frustration is that she has to go do this thing that she really doesn't want to do. If you read it that way, versus more being about, it could be like, okay, this is why I'm not going to do it. And then she gives that story to tell why she's not going to do it. Or it could be, oh crap, I'm here, I've got to bust this, but I don't want to, and this is why I don't want to. It just felt, I don't know, it felt like it. I don't think it was meant to be interpreted that way. Although I guess nobody can say that, but it was for somebody who's watching and they're not paying a lot of close attention and they haven't been, reading the signs or whatever, you could forgive them for watching this and still thinking Nora had to go bust them. And you're like, oh, that's why she's upset. She doesn't want to go bust this. And Laurie tells her you have to, or it's going to be chaos. So she's going to go bust them, right? So like a non-attentive viewer, that might be a...
Yeah, I can see people reading it like that. I never read it like that, but I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But just, it got you. I saw you on the reaction. This was it. You were down. I saw you. Getting upset. It's a bummer, man. It's a. You've been watching these people for this long, and they're all at the end of this certain rope, man. And this episode has really gone up in my estimation since watching it this week. Might be my favorite episode so far of the season. So, should we get to the scene with
yeah,
Kevin and Laurie?
Before we go on, I also like the... I was talking about Laurie and Nora there, but the interaction with Matt as well, and just the way Nora says like, okay. Okay.
So happy, right?
Yeah.
It's
that kind of, Big Brother Matt is there. She seems
totally.
kind of that's little sister Nora kind of opening up.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was really planning on going with, when he made that decision. Maybe when she said in the van, people should be with family. I don't know, man. I'm getting choked up really talking about this whole like 2 scene thing. It's a lot for me.
What's weird though is that
Yeah.
I guess the implication of this is that Nora rescued the book, because Kevin definitely didn't rescue it.
No, yeah, she took the book out of the hotel. I mean, at some point she met up with Laurie and Matt, and she had the book.
It's just interesting that she would salvage that.
I think at some point people are just having more sympathy overall for people a little bit outside of their scope. So if she can leave and come with Matt or wherever and grab the book when she goes, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Kevin rides up as Laurie is waiting for him on the porch. He seems very calm and collected. It is quickly replaced by shock as Laurie admits she drugged everyone so she could talk to Kevin alone. Laurie says she has come to say goodbye. And this is my second audio clip.
I was pregnant.
What?
I was pregnant. 16 weeks.
I don't... when?
7 years ago tomorrow. I was lying in the doctor's office, staring at the ultrasound. Looking right at it.
Why didn't you tell me?
We raised 2 beautiful kids. Did you want another baby?
No.
Me neither. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to, and then I didn't have to. Are you scared? The water until you drown?
The last time it happened, where I went, that was so... it was real. Maybe I was dead, but I had never felt so alive. No, I'm not scared.
not scared either.
And it could work, so I could come back.
I really hope you do.
Will you stay?
I can't.
Wait. Got your lighter.
Oh, you can keep it. I quit.
Is Nora gone?
We're all gone.
Goodbye, Laurie.
Goodbye, Kevin.
I mean, it's a scene of the series, right? Like it's one of them. What do you have on this exchange between these two people?
I mean, there's so much. It's probably best just going through sort of chronologically.
Sure.
So like I was saying before, Kevin sort of assumes she's there to stop him, and she says no, she's there to say goodbye. And that, I think, that's like the first major thing, I think, in this conversation, is that she's already made her mind up about what's happening, or what she's going to do. And this conversation it's not this conversation that triggers it. It was already decided before this, and this is just her saying goodbye. It seems.
Okay. Rewatching it, I thought there's a lot more confirmation on her part about what the world has become. Because he comes back, like, he looks pretty good. He looks the best we've seen him as far as happiness and glow and light, right? His visage was glowing, right? I think it happens in this, and when we get to the later part of a conversation, I'll tell you when I think it happens. Or I can just tell you. I mean, it's when
It's when he says he's not scared.
Yeah, when he says he's not scared, and it felt real. You know, that one perfect moment of happiness in his face where he's like, that's where I'm in control. That's where everything's real. And I think in her mind, if Nora plants the seed with the scuba diving, but then the bricks start to fall with Nora saying what she said on the cliff, and she goes around to all the Kevin Sr. and people, and she gets confirmation from Kevin right here, right now, that everybody is so completely wrapped up in what she thinks are 100% delusions, right? And he looks so happy being in that delusion that there's nothing left for her to even try to do. And that's when I think she finally makes a decision. Like, that's when her mind, she finally goes, well, we're all gone at this point. And I came to that watching that this morning. I didn't get that until this morning when I watched it for my third time this week. You know, I think in the back of her mind, there was some small percentage that she was hoping that Kevin would be like, yeah, these people are crazy. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? But that didn't happen.
Mm. How does Laurie... Because we've been working on the whole time this basis of Laurie believing it's all delusions. And we know why. We know why she's predisposed to believe that. But we never actually get any kind of explanation from Laurie in terms of what actually did happen. Because she's pretty good at telling people what didn't happen, but like, well, how? Go on then, Laurie. What did happen when Kevin got shot and then came back and got buried underneath the ground 6 feet and came back? Like, it does, because what happened to Kevin is so extreme. It makes it a little bit more hard to side with Laurie on this. It's like, sure, what if Kevin had just like been, I don't know, say he went inside a room and all of this happened within a locked room, and then he came back out and he said, "This is what happened." Then we can understand Laurie's what she's, her angle she's coming from. But when like you literally have John who shot him and you literally have Michael who buried him, I'm just curious to know, what is it that makes her so adamant it's all this mass delusion? And I guess, I mean, you can try and answer that, but she doesn't say, so we don't know.
Don't know, and I don't really have an answer for you. And quite frankly, it's a conversation that's more for after the last episode. And that's not me putting off the Laurie conversation. This is the time for the Laurie conversation. This goes into a separate bucket than the Laurie conversation goes into a separate bucket, because that goes into the, did these things happen? Are these things happening to Kevin?
Well, no, it's not even that.
Yeah.
It's not, are they happening to Kevin? It's, how is Laurie so confident that they aren't happening?
Because she's a psychiatrist and she's a scientist and she doesn't believe in that mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, but
pure and simple.
Scientists also understand how like bullets work, and how, you know.
But she also saw the departure happen in front of her face with her baby and her, you know.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point. So
yeah,
she knows crazy stuff can happen. She knows science can't explain everything.
But I think also on some level in this episode, we're riding the pure emotion of her seeing her nearest and dearest give into what she can't grasp. And that's one of the things that makes her do what she does. Yeah. So I don't know if that's an answer.
Anyway. Yeah, I didn't even want to. There's much more to talk about in terms of Laurie stuff here, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I just had to, that was occurring to me when you were talking about it. It was like, hang on. I was trying to rack my brain. Like, has Laurie ever said what she, like, how does Laurie explain this? Because you must think she has a pretty good explanation to be so confident, but apparently not.
We'll go back to what the publisher said in that episode. You know, you told me what happened, but you didn't tell me how you made it made you feel, right? So she's not good at that. And I think that's relevant to this.
The cigarette, it's kind of a nice send off. The shared cigarette, we saw that in season 2, right?
I don't know if they shared one together, but they definitely smoked together. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. When they're in the room and they say, "Oh, smoking's great, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And that was like a similar not time frame, but I think that was like fairly far along in the season, maybe a similar point in season 2. I guess they both inhaled smoke together in season 1, so it's a running theme.
We got a hamster here this week, and all week I've been like, "Oh, we're gonna call it Mr. Funny, right?" No, they're not getting my jokes. What did you think about her telling him about the pregnancy?
I mean, it's kind of anticlimactic, but I feel like, you know, purposefully. I don't know, because it's like, they spend a similar amount of time. It just feels like they don't, for the weight of what it is they're talking about, they sort of don't seem to give it a lot of time. And it maybe I'm just not remembering like how long the conversation went on for, but like, it's just, so Laurie tells him, he's kind of taken aback, and then she says, did you want another baby? He says no. She says, well, we already got 2 great kids, and there we go. And, like, that's the end of it. But, like, we know from earlier in the season that Kevin, at least at this point, did want another baby. Because he asked Nora.
Well, at 2 completely different times in their lives.
Right. I know. But I'm saying, look, just because Kevin didn't want a baby back then, he does want a baby now. Obviously, those are 2 completely different times, but they're having the conversation now, not back then. And so, yeah, he can say he didn't want a baby back then, but, like, I just feel like it must be relevant in some way, the fact that earlier this season he was, like, all gung-ho about having another baby. You know?
Well, I think he was gung-ho about trying to find something with Nora that they could do so they didn't have to talk about things, which is a baby. That's what I think it was earlier in the year. I think, and she asked, did you want another baby? And they both knew they were talking about back then. You know what I mean? It was really one of those, like, Walter telling Jesse about Jane things. It's like one of those things where it's like, I guess there couldn't be a completely clean slate with them unless all the facts came out, and she sees it as the end. She thinks he's gonna die, right? Might as well lay it out there. But at this point, when I was watching, I was so wrapped up in the emotion, I wasn't. It was just a really great scene, and Amy Brennemen just killing it this entire episode. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So many good actresses on the show.
I mean, I agree. I just it wouldn't be so much of a conversation if I just said I agree.
Right.
So
No, I understand. I understand.
Yeah. How about the hamster? Because that's kind of a. I mean, is that just them slipping back into? You seem pretty comfortable around each other. It's a nice. It's not the moment I envisioned, right, in season 1 when we find out about Kevin and Laurie, and she's his wife. Because at the time I was thinking, okay, so it's going to be like a slow burn mend, and it's going to be gradually over time these 2 are going to come back together, and we kind of get that, but obviously not in the way you were expecting back in season 1, or the way I was expecting. Because I feel like it's normal to expect when a TV shows you 2 characters that are like main characters, and they used to be husband and wife, and they have this kind of rocky relationship. It's pretty standard to start thinking, maybe they're going to come back together again. And so you've been waiting for some kind of coming togetherness where, like, they're on the same, they can just be themselves with each other. And we kind of, but don't really get that in season 2. But I think we get it here. Sure. Like, especially with the bit about the hamster and just how chilled out they seem to be.
Well, yeah, and they're admitting things that have been on their mind. I killed the hamster. I didn't go to the conference. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I had a baby, but it departed. Mm-hmm. And
Kevin hated the house.
A very sweet scene. The greatest eyebrow in the history of the show is when he looks out after he looks inside and sees everyone's drugged, and that's the greatest eyeball I've ever seen. Yeah, those 2 scenes together completely wrecked me when I first saw them and when I was watching them this week. I'm not watching Certified for quite a while. They're almost too raw.
I think the standout part of the conversation for me is that section. Like you're saying about what Kevin says, he's not scared.
Yeah.
The police went, it was real. He's never felt so alive. It actually reminded me, I was watching, I mean, it didn't remind me. That's a lie. It reminded me just now when I said it. I watched the documentary Free Solo.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
I mean, did you hear about it though?
Yeah, I've
this
heard
guy,
about it.
Alex Honnold, climbs like this insane rock face.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a huge achievement. And I'm watching the documentary. There's a part in it where it's like an interview of his mum. I think it's his mum, and she says, "Oh, it's when he's out there on the wall with no ropes, pushing the limits of his body, kind of achieving perfection in human form, rock climbing, when he feels the most alive." And then she kind of chokes up, like she gets kind of teary, and she's like, how could you take that away from somebody? And
Right.
I guess it's a similar thing here. Like you're saying, Laurie recognizes what it means to Kevin, and she doesn't want to be the one to burst the balloon. Yeah. And I guess some of my points earlier was like, it's kind of arrogant assuming there even is a balloon to be bursted in the first place. Like she could just stick around and see for herself, but whatever.
I think
I
she makes
understand why she wouldn't, but
yeah, I think she makes it very clear that she just physically can't do it. She can't be around it.
She does manage to give him the lighter though, so he remembers her.
Mm-hmm.
What about when Kevin says he's not scared,
Mm-hmm.
or he says, I can't remember which order he says it, but he says that stuff about feeling so alive, and they says he's not scared, and then Laurie says, "Then I'm not scared either." When you watch that the first time, you think Laurie's talking about Kevin. You think she's saying, "Oh, well, I'm not scared for you then either." But then when you rewatch it, it feels more like she's saying, "Well, I'm not scared either then," and obviously knowing what happens. Do you think that's what she's saying?
I never thought about it that way. 100%. It could totally be that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. Thanks for that. Now I got to watch it again. But
Just because she sees like how moved he is, and he just really like heartfelt talk to her about, he's not scared of dying, and then she says, "But I'm not scared either." So it's a nice moment.
And also this whole I could come back. I really hope you do. It's just it crushes me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, even that, like, she really hopes he does, but like, she won't see. So I know she's saying She hopes he'll come back for his sake, but like, for her, it almost sounds like, I really hope you do come back so we can chat about hamsters again. But it's not that.
Mm-mm. You ready for the boat?
Mm-hmm. Although when Nora leaves and Kevin says like, "Goodbye, Nora," maybe it's just Kevin's so good at delivering his lines that even saying the word goodbye, you can read me into. But he sounds kind of like, it's not like he's saying, the way he says it with some finality, right? It's not like he's saying goodbye, see you tomorrow, or see you next week. The way he says it, you wonder, like, does he have any idea what Laurie's planning?
No. I think he thinks he's gonna die.
I mean, I guess it's the same. It would be the same result either way if it did happen. Is he's not going to see her again? So
yeah,
even though he doesn't know, it's still a similar.
Yeah, I don't think he's thinking that she's going to do that anyway. Mm-hmm. But we see Laurie Murphy sailing on a scuba boat to the middle of the Australian harbor. She gets a call from Jill and Tommy asking about the name of an old TV show, Today's Special, which I did watch when I was a child. They have a quick chat and ends with "I love yous." The impatient boat captain hurries her along as there is a storm coming in. She smiles to herself, puts on her scuba mask, flips over the side of the boat into the water. And that's the end of the episode. When this episode first aired, I was a regular contributor over to Jay and Jack on their Leftovers podcast. And I wrote a letter every week, sometimes very long and boring. And this week I was like, I can't handle this. I can't write a letter this week. And that was my letter. I'm still kind of in the same spot after rewatching it in the context of everything that we've been talking about. So, you know, it's a devastating episode, and it's gone up to be one of my favorites. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the final boat ride.
So, I mean, I had been looking forward to seeing, like, obviously we'd seen the trailer, and we see Laurie standing on a boat, we see, like, scuba gear. And the whole season I'd been, like, looking forward to it, because I was like, oh, you know, that looks interesting, right? They're going on a boat, like, what are they doing? Scuba diving? It must be fun. And I was like, yeah, let's make it happen. When's it going to happen? I want to see this. And then the minute it does show up, you're like, oh, please, I take it back. I don't want to see this. Like, don't do it. I don't care about a boat. So it's like, it kind of tricked me, because I was excited to see that boat scene at the start of the season. By the time it got to this point, I was like, please no.
Yeah.
But I mean, even like, you think it's bad, and then the phone call just like wrecks you, and it's like Lindelof just like, okay, let me see how far I can twist the knife right here. Want like a Jill to call her. Put Tommy in the background.
And her reaction to them. I mean, smiling but resigned, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. I don't know.
See why. It reminds me of what we were talking about earlier about, so there's like, Matt is with Nora, and the Kevin Senior and Junior together, and you got Michael and John. And then at the time, they're like, oh, Laurie's kind of on her own, and she has got nobody, she doesn't believe in this stuff, and she kind of has to go do this. But obviously there's Jill and Tommy, and they're kind of removed from this whole thing. Like, and so surely she has some common ground there, and it's like, what's stopping her going living with them? Like, I know it sounds like wishful thinking, but at this point, you don't care. Like, you just want it to be okay. So, you know, go live with Jill. She doesn't know about any of this stuff that's going on. You can go talk psychiatry to her.
Right. I do want to get your thoughts, because I said we were going to talk about Laurie, just her whole, you know, kind of her arc and how you feel about her now. And, you know, is everything colored by the fact of what happened in this episode?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because you could look at this episode and say, it's tough. Like, you don't want to talk. Like, the last thing you want to do after watching this episode is say, well, actually, Laurie was wrong about this, and, like, she shouldn't have done this, and it was immoral to do this, and, like, you just don't want to do that, because, like, how could you? Like, what kind of person would you be if you did that? But given that it's a TV show, and we're here to talk about Laurie, so, yeah, okay, we can talk about Laurie.
Yeah, do it.
I think what it is from the sort of outset of season 2, when we sort of get introduced to this new Laurie, she sort of frustrated me because she reminded me of people, like she kind of epitomized those people that quite annoy me, who think just, you know, learning a few facts, a bit of like pop science and psychology is somehow enough to explain like all the mysteries and the complexity of the universe. When the only thing that really anybody knows is that nobody has the full understanding, like on the surface of what's going on. and anyone that tells you like otherwise is usually not as smart as they're trying to let on. And it just pays to be open-minded, I think. And when somebody doesn't, it just kind of comes off as arrogant to me, and it's frustrating. So she reminded me of that, and she kind of doubled down on it a few times, and it's even more so in this show because we have like the departure, and we have this stuff that's happened, and we see what happens to Kevin. And sure, we don't know if it did or not, but we want to believe that it happened to Kevin because we were there and we were watching, and it's important to us. And she's sort of the one standing between us and that, and so it's easy to see her as kind of the antagonist, not antagonist, but an obstacle, if you want, to that. And so it is easier to get frustrated at her, I think, than a lot of the other characters, because all the other characters are kind of playing from the same playbook, but she's on a totally different one, and it's hard because you've got that disconnect between them. But that's kind of, all of that is kind of irrelevant to Laurie as a character, and the big question being, is she actually trying her best to look out for the people she cares about and the people she loves, and is she doing the best job she can in the way that she knows how to help people? And I think most of the time she is. And so you can be as kind of critical of her as you like, but at the end of the day, I think she's still a good person in the show, and she's just doing her best in her own kind of imperfect way to help out a bunch of other imperfect people. So I guess that's Laurie.
And would your opinion have been that way without this episode?
Well, no, I don't think so.
Right.
But not for the reason that you're saying. There's a lot that goes into this episode. Like,
well, sure. No. I mean, it's her performance this episode. You know, it's performance and writing in this episode, and the kind of closure they gave her in various areas. You know, in a cast full of outstanding female actors, it's a powerhouse of an episode. I'm going to ask you one last question. I know I'm always saying one last one, but right, you're going to miss these leftovers times. I know sometimes they're stressful to get them together and watch them and get together and do notes, and it's still very much fun, but it's almost over. So, where are you thinking? Because the cool thing about the shows that were on when it was on was their whole thing was like theorizing what would happen, right? Obviously can't theorize with you, but do you have any thoughts about what you're expecting to see in the next episode?
Something crazy, I'd hope.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we have Nora. I think I mentioned this maybe actually right after we finished the episode, but we have Nora, maybe Matt, or maybe just Nora, who wants to go through this machine, which will supposedly take her wherever they went. And then we have Kevin, who's also in a much more roundabout way, trying to get to where they went. And so I think it's possible we see both Kevin and Nora access some kind of plane, and they're both on it, and heck, maybe even the departed people are on it as well. And maybe that's what happens, or maybe not. Maybe I'm just way wrong. But
and do you think?
But what is? Sorry, yeah. I think the biggest not obstacle, but like issue with that is we've seen or we've heard multiple times that the whole point is the people that departed didn't die, and so how is Kevin going to access them by dying? Because that's not how you get there, unless he's not actually fully dying. And I don't know, because even when he went to the hotel, the people that he saw weren't people that departed, I don't think. it was people that died, and so everybody's thinking that, okay, Kevin's going to die, and then he's going to go find these people that departed. But isn't the whole point that the people who departed didn't die? So, I don't know, that's kind of an issue with my theory, but I still think there is a way that it could happen that way, where maybe Kevin does, wherever he's going, isn't actually him dying, because, well, for one, he's not dying, because he comes back. So, maybe he's going to where they went. Maybe he goes there, he sees Nora there, or somehow they both access the same place, and I feel like it's got to go, like, each season. I don't think it's enough, just from like the standpoint of making a TV show. It's not enough just to repeat what happened in season 2, because to an extent, while it'd be interesting, we've already seen that, and we want to see something we haven't seen before, and so I think you have to go further. So, what is the furthest place we can go to? Maybe it's where they went. I don't know.
And we still have old Nora at some point, right?
Yeah, don't even. Yeah,
yeah, right.
I have no idea. That's there somewhere. I have no idea.
That's there somewhere. Overall, certified in your list of episodes for season 3, would you say? Where would you put it?
Probably in the top 2 or 3.
Top
Maybe
2 or
number
3.
2.
Yep.
And I know this is so weird, and you probably won't understand this. Even I don't really understand this. But in terms of episodes I enjoyed the most, I really think it was the Kevin Senior episode. Maybe it's the fact that it was less like high stakes and there was less drama, and so it was more of a peaceful episode, and that's why I remember it as just being a bit more like chilled out, like aesthetic, funny in places.
Right on.
But like enjoyment, I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed 90% of this one.
I mean, this one like I said before, this one went way up for me. Those. God, you can barely take down the essence of at least season 3 of the show, and I think, except for a few things coming up, boil them down to like this show almost in this episode. So, I mean, the next one's a doozy. I can't wait to watch it with you. We'll watch it this week. Hey, everybody, if you're still listening, if you could take us a second and like and subscribe, you could break that 30 subscriber barrier if you're still listening. Do appreciate it. We're going to think about something to do after the leftovers. If you have any ideas, shoot them over. Benji, got anything else for us?
No, I'm just I'm really hyped to watch the next one. I can't believe when did we even watch this? I guess it was like a week ago. The minute this one ended, I really wanted to watch the next one. Yeah. And then I guess this happens, doesn't it? You give it a week, and it's slightly less. So, like, I am really, obviously, because you just finished watching it for the first time, you have that, like, you just need to see the next one. And then, obviously, it'd been a week, and so when I'd sort of gone a little bit off, not off that, like, I still was so hyped to see it, but it wasn't that same as right when I finished. But then talking about it now with you, just reminded myself of, like, all the stuff that's led up to this. I am super hyped.
You have so many admirers. You have more than one out there that are really giving you lots of props for holding out to watch them. So please continue to do so. There's only 2 left. You're doing a great job. This has been a distinct pleasure of my adult life doing this with you. So I'm really looking forward to the next 2.
Okay, great. See you.
Everybody, see you later.